I have a unique ability to experience the last 3 minutes of a deceased person's life. With this skill, I've solved many unsolved cases. After being transferred to a new district during my first response, I encountered a girl with a mysterious death. I used my ability again, but this time I saw my own face. When did the body arrive? I asked, still feeling a bit dazed. This was the most painful 3 minutes I'd experienced in my career, with a numb despair that made me tug at my collar. Is there a problem? Victor Lee noticed my unease and gestured for me to sit down while answering my question. The report came in half an hour ago, and the body was sent over 10 minutes ago. Didn't you have a forensic expert or doctor come to the scene? I pressed on. Someone did go. Cameron Brooks, Victor's apprentice, replied. When she was found, she was hanging in the dorm. Based on estimates, she'd been hanging for about 3 to 6 hours. Normally, people wouldn't just hang there without struggling or closing their eyes, and her body was stiff. I saw my own face. I interrupted, feeling increasingly annoyed. Do you know what that means? Cameron stared at me blankly. Does it mean you're the killer? His response left me speechless for a moment, but fortunately, Victor remained composed. His voice was calm. It means, from a physiological standpoint, she died just 3 minutes ago. That's impossible, Cameron said, staring at the body in shock, his words stumbling due to extreme fear. From the time we responded to now, it's been 30 minutes. I swear the girl didn't move at all. How could a living person just hang there without moving? Maybe it was controlled by medication or perhaps another method, I said. This kind of technique would be unbelievable even in major international cases. And it happened in a 4-person dorm. Why did you bring this to me? I asked, as I'm just an assistant for special cases. This is the state of the body when we arrived and some witness statements. Victor handed me several A4 papers. We interviewed several people and deduced the writing on the wall based on their testimonies. The first photo showed the crime scene of the deceased, Emily Thompson, hanging from the ceiling with her limbs forming a da shape. Her face was serene with a slight smile, just 50 centimeters from the upper bunk bed. The second image was of a wall with chaotic marks. After a while, I barely made out the word dog. You can actually recognize this? Victor was surprised before continuing. We found something at the scene. The victim seemed to have voluntarily gone through the noose to die. But if she was trying to commit suicide, why leave those marks on the wall? If she changed her mind halfway, why not just call for help? Why leave those marks unnecessarily? Why didn't she choose to die on her own bed instead of her roommates? As Cameron spoke, he pulled out the last paper, pointing to the highlighted notes with a mysterious expression. According to our interviews, the victim had a good relationship with her roommates. The only unusual thing was that she had once brutally killed a dog. Before she died, she told several people she heard dogs barking and kept saying things like, "The dog is coming," or "The dog is seeking revenge." So, I asked, all this should be investigated by a special department, not us. Cameron concluded, this is a paranormal case. I couldn't help but clap, facing Victor's stern expression, and handed the papers back. Take the body away. There's no negative energy on her. It's a worldly case. Cameron didn't dare speak again. Victor, however, looked unsurprised, took the papers and apologized for Cameron. The kid is new to this department and has been reading too many files lately. I'll report everything accurately after the case is closed and handle any disciplinary actions then. That's your business. Just don't bother me, I said coldly. Unexpectedly, Victor appeared at my office door that afternoon with a transfer order. Cameron has been put on probation, and we've applied to have you assist me on this case. Looking at the bright red transfer order, I tried to save my relaxed routine. I don't handle worldly cases. Even if I went, I wouldn't be of much use. Victor smiled faintly. Knowing the decision was final, I could only pack my things while grumbling. I don't believe it. You guys can't be short-staffed. We have enough people, Victor said, looking at me and sighing. Eric, are you sure this case is truly a worldly one? I raised my head abruptly. What do you mean? We found talismans in the victim's mouth. Victor opened a recording and gestured for me to watch. When did you notice something was off about Emily? In the video, a girl replied, about a month ago. She said she was haunted by ghosts and asked if I knew any good masters. Ghosts? The video's Victor repeated. Yes, she was told to believe in science since we're all university students now. Why still believe in superstitions? The girl in the video showed a hint of disgust. She had a boyfriend who had a dog for over 10 years. She went crazy, saying he loved the dog more than her, and she brutally killed the dog in the dorm. Her roommates were shocked when they returned. What happened after? Victor's voice came from the video. After that, her boyfriend broke up with her, the girl replied. She refused to accept it and even wore dog skin to beg for reconciliation, saying she'd be his dog. Many people witnessed it. The girl pulled out her phone and showed Victor a video of the incident. After he finished watching, he reluctantly put his phone away. Anyway, after that, I often heard her say there were dogs barking around her and that dogs were following her. The video ended abruptly. Victor asked me, "Now, do you still think it's a worldly case?" I frowned. It's indeed strange. Animals rarely become ghosts because most have innate deficiencies. Even if they die, they instinctively head to the underworld. Maybe this is a special case, Victor said. As we spoke, Victor's phone rang. After a moment, he hung up with a serious expression. Something happened? I asked. Yes, Victor said, looking at me. The victim's roommates went back to gather their belongings and found the bed covered in the word dog, all in the victim's handwriting. By the time we arrived, the two girls had already been sent to the hospital. At the dorm entrance, the dorm manager was dispersing the crowd of students. The girl from the video was talking to the manager, seemingly composed. I noticed her calm demeanor. The girl looked small and somewhat wilted, saying, "The young officer didn't come with you this time?" Victor maintained a straight face, saying, "He's on a business trip." The girl's expression improved slightly, but she still looked concerned as she glanced at the manager's stern face. "Oh," she said, then continued, "I feel like Emily might not have been lying. Just before you arrived, I heard dog barking too. Many people did." Victor looked at me, and I shook my head, still not sensing any negative energy. The girl didn't notice our expressions and continued. The dorm door was wide open, and it was empty, but there was this barking that lasted for a while before stopping. She said this with a mysterious look. Some people said it sounded just like the barking when Emily killed the dog. This made my heart beat a bit faster. Could it really be a vengeful spirit? But I felt something wasn't right. The dorm was clean without any unusual signs. The only standout was the bed where Emily died. Victor pointed to the ropes hanging down, with the bed half on the floor and half on the bed. The exposed bedboard was covered in the word dog. "Looks like it," Victor commented. I was about to say it again. I helped Victor put the bedboards into evidence bags, preparing to leave. The girl had left unnoticed, leaving only the manager with a red iron lock at the door. "This dorm will be sealed off when you return. We didn't ask about the belongings inside." As the manager locked the door, we were about to leave when a dog barking sound came from inside. The manager's hand froze, and she retreated in fear. Then, more barking sounds surged out like a wave. The mournful barks echoed in everyone's ears, and the once bustling hallway suddenly became empty, with every room door tightly closed. "Open the door," Victor Lee shouted coldly. The dorm manager, trembling, tossed the keys over and quickly ran downstairs. By the time we managed to open the door with the keys, the room had fallen silent again. It was empty once more. At this point, I began to doubt my judgment for the first time. Victor checked the time and made a call before heading to the hospital with me. The hospital was nearby, and both girls were in the same room, which made it convenient for us. When we arrived, they were sipping something from bowls, and a boy was sitting nearby, slowly peeling an apple. Victor's eyes flickered, and he whispered to me, "This is the victim's ex-boyfriend." I was taken aback. Most people would want to avoid such situations, but this guy seemed to be walking right into it. The boy was very calm. "You'll come looking for me sooner or later, so let's get it over with." He looked up at Victor behind me. "I know what you want to ask, but her death has nothing to do with me. Whether it does or not isn't for you to decide. It's for us to investigate," Victor said, pulling out papers and gesturing for me to record. "Do you mind if we start now?" "Ask away," the boy replied openly. "What was your relationship with the victim?" Victor asked. "Ex." The boy paused. "I really dislike her. She killed my family." "Family?" Victor pressed on. "The dog," the boy replied. "It was given by my grandfather and had been with me for over 10 years. Like family." "Did you have any recent contact with the victim?" "I blocked her," the boy said, furrowing his brow. "I know it's disrespectful, but Emily was really twisted." This was the second time I'd heard that description. The boy showed me a video where Emily was brutally skinning a dog with a fruit knife. If you want revenge, come after me. I can kill you once and I can do it again. She seemed oblivious to the chaos around her, putting down the knife and biting into the dog like a madwoman. The video was noisy, but Emily seemed to feel nothing. I really hate her, and her death is well-deserved. Maybe it was my dog seeking revenge, the boy said. I felt he had little connection to the case. After a routine inquiry, the boy seemed genuinely uninvolved. Our two objectives were the same. In their words, Emily's image became more vivid. Why would a smart, lively person choose to end their life in such a way? On the way back, I was still flipping through the records, feeling like I'd missed something. Don't read papers in the car. It's bad for your eyes. Just ask me if you need anything. Victor tossed over a comment. At a red light, Victor reminded me to order takeout. As I pulled out my phone, something suddenly clicked in my head. I realized what was off. Did Emily's family come after she died? I asked. She was an orphan, and her only grandmother passed away a couple of years ago, Victor replied. What was her family situation like? Pretty average, Victor continued. But where did she get all that money? My thoughts began to clear up. How did she afford to be so generous? She was a college student without a financial source. Where did she get the money to consult masters? Is consulting masters expensive? Victor wondered. You know the saying, ghosts don't enter poor homes. I laughed. For poor people, even if they know they live next to ghosts, they can't afford to hire masters to exorcise them. At most, they just comfort themselves by thinking they have a 24/7 guard. But Emily never seemed to worry about being poor. Let's investigate her income sources, I suggested. Emily's activities were easy to track, and her social relationships were simple. Her income came from being a full-text hero online. She made money by plagiarizing content to gain followers and then sold her accounts to people who specialized in managing them. I opened her current account's homepage. It had grown significantly, with about 1 million followers. Before the incident, she maintained a pace of updating 2 books a day. Without updates for days, her latest video had many comments from eager fans. Have you seen my temple? Blogger, please come back. I miss reading your updates. If you're gone, won't that mean one less temple for us? This is illegal, isn't it? I couldn't help but exclaim. Yeah, rats in the sewer. One complaint and you're done, Victor replied. We figured out Emily's income source, but the case became more complicated. Generally, crimes have motives, whether it's a crime of passion, jealousy, or something else. But Emily's case lacked any clear motive. Her activities were straightforward, and she rarely stayed in the dorm, so she didn't have conflicts with her roommates. She was good at socializing, and people around her praised her. Even the possibility of her ex-boyfriend seeking revenge for the dog was ruled out. Could it be that the authors of the plagiarized works cursed her? I scratched my head, trying to find a lead. Victor continued smiling. Are you putting the criticism you received onto yourself? Otherwise, how could a classmate and roommate like Emily, who was considered perfect, end up like this? Wait, I remember her dorm was a 4-person room. Why were there only 3 people? Originally, it was 4, Victor said without needing to check the files. The dorm was for a different major due to room shortages. Emily was temporarily assigned there about a year ago. After one of the students jumped off the building, the remaining 2 students requested a transfer. The school then assigned Emily 2 new roommates from her class. Did they agree to it? Initially, they were hesitant, but the 2 students who transferred out gave them some money, Victor explained. Why did that student commit suicide? The records say it was due to depression. Victor paused, raising an eyebrow. Do you think there's something suspicious about that student's death? It's been so long. How could we possibly tell? I replied gruffly. What was the name of the student who jumped? I think it was Nadine Grant, Victor replied. Nadine. I murmured the name a couple of times, and the subtle inconsistency finally became apparent. Dog. Nadine. I couldn't help but draw the character for dog on paper, feeling a connection in the case begin to emerge. What I thought was a twisted dog character could actually be Nadine, if viewed from a different angle. Victor and I exchanged a glance and stood up simultaneously. It's not dog, it's Nadine. At the same moment, Cameron arrived with a report. Boss, the test results for the talismans are out, and they actually contain medication. From the start, we'd been misled. Someone tried to define the case as a paranormal one, unaware of the existence of special departments. But the person behind this knew about it and guided us in that direction. If I hadn't been transferred, following the usual procedures, the case might have been classified as paranormal and left pending review for years. The method was crude but surprisingly effective. Victor clearly thought the same. As for who leaked the department's existence, I fixed my gaze on Cameron's innocent-looking face. Victor restrained my hand. "I promise I won't show favoritism. Second time," I said. "There won't be a third," Victor replied. Having reached an understanding, we continued our discussion. "I have a feeling that Nadine Grant will be the key to solving this case," I said. "I'll look into that," Victor volunteered. "I vaguely remember this case. Once I find the files, I can ask the two girls who moved out. Let me handle the talismans with Cameron." I took on the task. "I'll take Cameron with me to give the person behind this a false signal." With our simple division of labor complete, we set off. Emily was actually quite cautious. According to those who knew her, she had consulted many masters but never met any. In her communication software, we found a payment record to a wandering Taoist. Following this lead, we found the fake Taoist under a bridge within 2 days. Initially, the Taoist pretended to ask about our purpose, but upon seeing Emily's photo, he quickly grabbed his stool and tried to flee. "Don't catch me. I'm just trying to make a living," the Taoist pleaded with a pitiful expression. "You seem to know why we're here," I said with a hint of a smile. "Maybe you should have predicted how many years you'd spend in jail." "I didn't think it would blow up like this," the Taoist said. "According to what you were told?" I asked. "It was a young girl. I even took a photo of her." The Taoist showed us a photo of her back. "I'm really innocent. The girl told me someone had killed her dog and wanted revenge. She asked me to make it sound severe, so she could suffer a bit." "What did you come up with?" I pressed on. "It's about a stand-in." The Taoist began explaining the process. After listening to the Taoist's elaborate story, I was momentarily speechless. When we arrived at the office, Victor was already there. He was crouched in front of a whiteboard, sticking photos on it. Seeing us return, he nodded and continued drawing lines. Nadine Grant's name was circled in red at the top left corner of the board, surrounded by various character images. On the far right of the board was the girl from the dorm, with Cameron's name written next to hers. "How does this involve me?" Cameron muttered quietly. "Don't you know what you've done?" Victor's voice was cold as he capped his pen and began to formally organize the case. "Nadine's death is indeed connected to Emily," Victor said, using a different colored pen to link their names. "Nadine was a writer, somewhat famous." "A writer?" I thought about Emily's financial source. Did she plagiarize Nadine's work too? "It's more serious than that." Victor paused. "Do you know about custom novels? Nadine was working on one worth over $200,000. $200,000? I asked in surprise. "Yes, just before completion, Nadine and Emily had a fight. Emily knew about Nadine's novel and decided to publish her draft online while Nadine slept. By the time Nadine woke up, she faced over $3 million in damages," Victor explained. "The rest doesn't need to be said. A debt of over $3 million would be unbearable for a family, let alone a college student. Nadine likely jumped due to this. The words on Emily's bedboard and her aversion to dogs were probably because of Nadine. Even if others didn't know the connection, Emily did. Her guilt and fear tormented her, causing her to become increasingly twisted. Let me add something." I took Victor's pen and circled the photos of Emily's roommates. These two contacted a scammer to terrorize Emily. Emily was strong-willed and cautious. She wouldn't easily trust anyone, but if someone could clearly reveal her past, her inner balance might be shaken. They used the scammer to create a stand-in method, convincing Emily to put tampered talismans in her mouth, leading to her death. As I spoke, I could imagine Emily's actions. She likely believed it was Nadine seeking revenge, not dogs. The continuous barking and paranormal events had her nerves on edge. When everyone said she was mentally ill, a savior appeared, not only believing her but offering a solution. It was like bait with rat poison, betting on whether the rat would take it. The scammer told Emily that to escape the vengeful spirit, she needed to get close to the stand-in at midnight, hold the talisman, and hide her breath. I suspect the roommate was awake during the whole process. I think she must have opened her eyes and told Emily something, which is why Emily left those marks. It wasn't that she didn't want to leave more clues. It was that she could only move one hand. Imagining the scene sends chills down your spine. The person on the bed watched as Emily died right in front of her. their breaths intertwining as death enveloped them. Yet, she showed no fear, not even a disturbed breath. It was like a cat calmly sending a mouse to its death. With a motive and method, the suspect becomes clear. Let's point together? I looked at Cameron and Victor. See if we're thinking of the same person. 3 hands extended. 2 landed on the dorm girl's photo, and 1 on the roommate's. Cameron looked at us incredulously. You can't think it's her, can you? Isn't it the roommate who did it? Your apprentice is basically useless, I said to Victor. Victor rubbed his forehead, beginning to teach. I ask you, what's the roommate's motive? To avenge Nadine, Cameron replied. What's their connection to Nadine? Cameron hesitated. Victor pointed to the photo of the girl from the dorm. When you worked on this case, didn't this girl guide you a lot? Not that much, just a few things, Cameron said. Don't you feel like this girl appears too frequently and always at the right time? Whether in the records or at the dorm, she was always there. If I'm not mistaken, this girl should have some connection to Nadine, Victor said. Time is tight. I couldn't find it. If we can't find it, we'll just ask directly. I stamped a document. Isn't it faster to go straight to the source? Special departments do have some privileges. When we arrived, the girl was already waiting at the door. She wore a white dress and entered the car like a bird, complaining that we were late and had left her cold. Seeing our silence, she pulled the corner of her mouth into a smile. Anyway, let me introduce myself. I'm Scarlet Rose, one of the people Nadine sponsored. This was essentially a confession. We figured it out, I said. Whoever could orchestrate such a complex revenge must be connected to Nadine. We just didn't expect it to be someone she sponsored. You've probably also found out what that despicable person did to my sister, Scarlet asked. Cameron nodded, still unable to resist speaking. You could have just reported it to the police. You didn't have to put yourself in harm's way. Scarlet's smile grew wider. That would be too simple. I researched what she did, and at most, she'd spend a few years in jail. But I wanted her to suffer, to be tormented by guilt every day. That's how I'd avenge my sister. Don't you think the cost is too high? High. Scarlet shook her head. I think it's not high at all. Compared to what my sister did for me, this is a small price. Let me tell you a story, a very cliché one. The story sounded touching but was actually quite common. Years ago, Nadine made a lot of money from writing novels. She had no family, so she sponsored several people, and Scarlet was one of them. What was different was that Scarlet was personally rescued by Nadine from a remote mountain area. At the time, Scarlet was only 15 or 16 and was about to be forced into marriage. She refused and struggled, crying out for help from gods and Buddhas. But gods are busy, and not everything goes as wished. People around her advised her to accept her fate, saying women all go through this. Scarlet refused to accept it. She escaped from everyone and ran down the mountain, where she met Nadine, who was there to donate. Gods and Buddhas didn't save me. Only my sister did, Scarlet said, drawing something on the car window. My sister used her money to take me out of the mountains, transferred me to a school, and got me a residence permit. She told me to live well, to learn, and to love myself. Scarlet didn't love herself, but she listened to Nadine. Nadine said she would graduate soon, that she had a big project, and that after graduation they would live together. Nadine treated Scarlet like her own child. But Scarlet didn't expect that Nadine's only broken promise would be forever. When Scarlet received the large sum of money, she felt something was off. By the time she found Nadine's roommates and learned everything, she completely lost it. I'm like a wild dog, and my sister was my leash. Without her, I went crazy, Scarlet said, her face devoid of any smile. Was it you who made the dog barking sounds in the dorm? I asked. Just some recordings, Scarlet replied nonchalantly. As for the bedboard, it was originally written by that despicable person. I just had the 2 girls switch it to the bed where the incident happened. Why did those 2 help you? You've heard of boiling a frog in warm water, right? They received money from me for 2 years. At first, they might have felt uneasy, but after 2 years, how high could their moral standards be? Besides, I didn't ask them to do anything out of line, Scarlet said with a hint of amusement. I just told them to pretend they couldn't hear the barking and help me deal with the scammer. Victor naturally took on a teaching role, continuing. It was to clear their own names. They were worried that if they spoke up, it would affect them, so they acted like that. Correct? Scarlet made a cute gesture. Not just those 2 roommates, but the boy also knew. The dog recordings were from him. He knew what I was doing and hid it because he wanted revenge for his dog, Scarlett said. With that, the truth of the case was fully revealed. Except for the talisman, the rest of the methods were full of holes and incredibly simple. If not for Cameron's preconceptions, the case would have been solved quickly following normal procedures. But once it was shrouded in a paranormal cloak, it became bizarre and ghostly. The two roommates tried to deflect responsibility by creating confusion. The boy sought revenge for his dog, and the Taoist swindled people for $500. Originally unrelated individuals were manipulated by Scarlett. There aren't many ghosts in the world. It's human nature that's at play, I murmured. You could say that, Scarlett thought for a moment before pushing open the car door. I have some things to take care of. Now that you know everything, you can come for me tomorrow. I won't run. Victor started the car. Cameron was shocked. We're just letting her go? What if she runs? Are you staying to watch her? Victor replied coldly. I didn't bother with those two. After the car started moving, I rolled down the window and called out to Scarlett. Scarlett. Yes. You didn't need to say so much. Using the excuse of avenging your sister, you enjoyed the thrill of killing, didn't you? Scarlett's smile faded, and her eyes turned cold. As we merged into traffic, Cameron still hadn't processed what I said. He didn't dare ask Victor, so he poked me. Eric, what did you mean by that? Can't you understand? It's not that I don't. It just feels strange. Believe only about 70% of what Scarlett says. The most genuine thing she said is that she's a mad dog. If I'm not wrong, she has an ace up her sleeve. Maybe a diagnosis of a mental disorder. I explained. What do you mean? She likely has antisocial personality disorder. Don't trust what she says. She went to great lengths just to make Emily suffer and die in a thrilling way. I said. What does that mean? It's just a ploy to reduce her sentence. Victor couldn't help but be speechless, patting Cameron's shoulder. Cameron's intelligence seemed to have dragged down the whole team. The green light came on and the story ended. Scarlett did run, but fortunately, Victor caught up with her at the train station, where she was using fake documents. On the day of the trial, Victor asked if I wanted to attend. I declined. Later, Victor told me that Scarlett produced many things to reduce her sentence, including psychiatric records and her parents from her hometown. She used her guardianship and being underage to lighten her punishment. The outcome was as she wished, but she couldn't avoid prison. As for Cameron, after multiple disciplinary actions, he resigned. He said his intelligence wasn't enough and didn't want to cause another similar incident. Victor applauded wildly at this. After reviewing years of archives and confirming there were no paranormal cases, I received a transfer order to another district. On the day I left, Victor came too. He waved a paper. Why are you the only one being transferred? I didn't speak, just smiled slightly as I looked at his bright red ears. I understand. In a corner unseen by anyone, my phone popped up with a message. Your requested partner has been approved. Please head to the next district as soon as possible. There's been a malicious assault, suspected to be a D-level paranormal case. Please arrive promptly. The green light turned on, and a new story began.